Today we're talking about how to board slide a rail. So if you've never really skated a rail before, getting into it can be pretty intimidating and kind of scary. So we're going to start off basically with what I think is the easiest trick to do on a flat bar, and that is the backside board slide. And specifically, we're going to be talking about landing to fakie, but you can go to regular, whatever feels more comfortable for you. And side note, I know that rails come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and heights, but I'm going to be sticking with what I think is the easiest to learn on, which is a short square rail. So the three main parts to doing the backside board slide are ollieing and turning 90 degrees onto the rail, sliding across and maintaining your balance, and then turning 90 and coming out off the rail. The only things you should really know first are how to ollie. And it's not 100% necessary, but if you can do frontside 180s, that would definitely help. But if not that, then at least understanding the fundamentals of how to pop your board and then turn your body frontside. For the foot positioning of this trick, I pretty much just set up like an ollie, and depending on how high the rail is, you can move your front foot up or down, depending on how high you need to pop. Alright, so we're basically just going to break apart each step of this trick, and the first thing you'll want to practice is getting comfortable ollieing and turning 90. If you want, you can practice just on flat first, just to kind of get the feeling down. But I think the first real helping step would be to practice with a parking block, or if not that, then a curb. Just start off by setting up next to the parking block, and at first you can kind of just pivot into it and turn 90. And eventually you can start just kind of popping your tail and getting into it. And like I said, you can practice this on a curb, but it's not really going to feel the same, because with that, your wheels end up kind of up on top, and you're at a weird angle rather than being flat like you would be on a rail. But if it's all you have, then it can definitely help with the movement of just turning 90 and landing on something. So either way, just do this enough times until you're really comfortable just getting up onto the block. Now, if you've never really skated a rail, I know it's a pretty big step to move from like a parking block or a curb up onto an actual rail. So I suggest at first just sort of feeling it out and riding alongside the rail and maybe just popping your board up with one foot. Oh, and right here is maybe where you might need to start thinking about wax. If this is like a fresh, unwaxed rail, then you might want to try it out and see how it slides. But just remember that with rails, a little wax goes a long way, and personally, I'd rather kind of stick and go forward than slip out and fall back. So anyway, once you've kind of rolled up a few times and maybe kicked your board out onto the rail, it's time to start actually thinking about what it's going to be like to slide on the rail. A few ways that you can kind of practice this and get used to what it's going to be like are if you have a square rail, you can just sort of set your board on top and then try and get on and balance like you would in a board slide, except you're standing still. Also, if you have the ability, like you have a rail that you can move around, I would put it either completely in the grass or just leading into the grass, because the main thing here is you're just trying to feel out where you should be putting your balance when you're on top of the rail. You don't want to be leaning too far forward or back or side to side. You can see if you just have your board balanced on top and you're standing on it, that it's pretty easy to have the board slide out to the left or the right if you dip one of your feet down. So really just try and keep your shoulders parallel with the board and perpendicular with the rail, and use your arms to balance. In my opinion, this whole middle part where you're just learning how to actually get on the rail and be confident enough to stand on your board, that's the hard part in learning this. So whatever it takes, if you need to hold on to a rail or a wall while you're in the grass or whatever gets you feeling comfortable standing up on the board while you're in a board slide, that's the right way to go, and it's what you want to practice over and over. So hopefully once you've done this a lot of times, you've kind of gotten over some of the fear and you can kind of feel out what's going to happen when you get onto the rail. And this is where you can start practicing with moving it fully onto the flat ground and maybe just getting onto a board slide and jumping off before you land. So when it comes to landing, like I said earlier, I'm going to be talking about going to fakie, because personally I think when you're first learning this and you're getting onto the rail by doing a frontside 90 anyway, then it just kind of feels right for you to continue turning your shoulders at the end and doing the full 180 rotation. But if you want to, you can try coming to regular if it just feels right for you. So once you start to come to the end of the rail, you kind of push your back foot forward and turn 90. And sometimes you can kind of use your shoulders to counteract your hips. So as you're coming out, your hips are turning frontside, and you can just kind of use your shoulders to counteract that and turn the other way. You can also practice this whole step by sliding across the rail, and then as you get to the end, you can sort of just put all your weight on your front foot and set your front wheels down first and then pivot out. And eventually, if you've done this a lot, then you can probably feel comfortable not setting your front wheels down and actually sliding across. And then as you're at the end, you turn completely in the air. So if you've done all these little steps and now you're trying to put them together and actually do a board slide, if you want to, you can start off just by sliding a tiny bit of the rail. This might be easier at first, especially if you're just kind of getting on and jumping off. And then after you have that key magic moment where you're just fully locked in and you feel that you're balancing, that's when you can start getting into sliding more and more up the rail. And once you've gotten to that point, this can also depend on what kind of rail you have or if you're at a skate park. If you have the type of flatbar I'm using here, then you might have to get comfortable alling over the little legs, which is pretty much just a mental thing. If you've gotten to the point where you can slide the rail comfortably, then alling over that and trying to do the whole rail is really not going to be that big of a deal. But if you have a flatbar that's fully set into the ground, like at a skate park, then this is something you won't even have to worry about. So by now, you should have practiced plenty of times ollie and turning 90 degrees, turning 90 and getting onto something like a parking block just so you can sort of see what it feels like. And then separate from that, you should have practiced putting your board on a rail and just sort of standing on it and practicing seeing what it feels like to balance. Again, just kind of setting your board up or doing cavemans or practicing in the grass is a good step to kind of get used to this. And then hopefully you've moved on to actually olling up onto the rail. And then finally, once you've hit that spot where you actually feel okay getting on the rail, you can little by little sort of work your way up, sliding more and more of the rail. And also make sure that you've kind of focused on how to get out of the rail by turning your body 90 degrees. And then finally, you can put it all together and hopefully get yourself a board slide. So just remember to keep your weight centered, don't overwax the rail, and to start small and work your way up. I know a lot of you probably won't need this tutorial and you're thinking that a board slide's way too easy, but if you think back to when you very first learned how to skate a rail, it can be a pretty intimidating thing. So I hope that this can at least give someone a little bit of confidence to start trying to skate a flatbar. It's something I've never really been extremely great at, but I've always thought it was really fun. So yeah, go out there, find yourself a flatbar, and maybe try some board slides. And also make sure that you're being safe if you don't feel comfortable doing this. If you're not confident and you're kind of overthinking things and you're worrying, then put on a helmet and don't be dumb. Also, little side note, huge thank you to John Hill for sending me one of his Progress Daily Transformer rails. This video isn't sponsored in any way, but it really is an amazing little rail, and I've had a ton of fun relearning how to skate flat bars with it. So yeah, I'll put a link in the description and definitely go check it out. As always, I'd like to thank my wonderful Patreon pledgers for being so wonderful. And I'd like to thank you for watching, and you can like and subscribe if you want.